Good evening, David Bailey, Monroe, Connecticut. I want to talk about gun control. I believe Sandy Hook changed the conversation. I have friends in the UK who are horrified by Sandy Hook. We think it was a national tragedy. It was a global tragedy. My daughter, who now lives and works in Australia, had co-workers who were grief-stricken by Sandy Hook. When you look at the statistics in this country of death by gunfire, and we look at statistics of comparable nations like the UK, Canada, Spain, Germany, Japan, etc., our gun rates are orders of magnitude higher, and that has to change. The conversation that seems to take place seems to be a conversation where people talk past each other. The NRA on one side, and gun control advocates like myself on the other. But you mentioned earlier, in fact, I almost didn't ask this question because you alluded to technology. What comes to mind is, back in the 60s when Ralph Nader wrote his book about the auto industry and how dangerous cars were, it was revealed that auto manufacturers did not want to invest money in safety features like, shall we say, seatbelts, which we now take for granted. And so I guess my question is, why could we not put the gun industry into the same situation as the car industry used to be in, and mandate that certain technological innovations be made to the weaponry to make these things safer? Whether it's a fingerprinting system, maybe you could introduce a system like a weapon identification numbering system, much like vehicles have vehicle identification numbers. There are a number of alternatives here in the technological arena that could be brought to bear to reduce the carnage in this nation.
I very much appreciate the idea of trying to have the gun conversation more like we do have the car conversation. By the way, automobiles are more dangerous than, from the standpoint of killing Americans, they're more dangerous than guns are. More Americans die on our roads. Nobody's pro-car or anti-car. There's not a lot of emotion in it. We make sure that cars are safe. We make sure that you're licensed to drive one. When your vision goes, you don't get to... If we could somehow change the conversation to be a little bit more about that. And by the way, what does that imply? It implies a little bit less emotion. It implies, Mr. McGuffey and I have a history on this stuff. We don't have any rights that are unregulated. And for hundreds of years, it's been a legal principle that your rights and liberties extend just so far to the point where they start impinging on other people's rights and liberties and things like public safety. So this is a conversation that I wish we could talk about more the way we talk about automobiles. And frankly, and I want to be quick in saying this, it's worse than what you described because the federal government has been prohibited from gathering facts on gun violence by some things known as the Chart Amendments, which very deliberately kept the federal government from thinking about the facts associated with gun violence. When you learn the facts on gun violence, first of all, it's an irrefutable fact that as much as you might think, and by the way, I understand the sentiment, that if I have a gun and somebody breaks into my house, I'm going to be able to do something about it. It is an irrefutable fact that a gun in the home dramatically increases the likelihood of violence in that home. It is also a fact, and these facts are hard to find because the government has been prohibited from getting them. Rand did a study of police discharges of weaponry, those people who say the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, policemen who are trained and who spend time on ranges and know how to use weapons, and by the way, are trained in high-stress situations that none of us are trained in. When they are engaged in a firefight with another individual, they hit their intended target less than 2 in 10 times, 18% of the time. These are important facts that you don't hear a lot, and there aren't enough of them, and if we could just get more information and start to think about this the way we think about automobiles, I think we could preserve Second Amendment rights and lose a lot fewer people to gun violence. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Congressman. Chris Jennings, Fairfield. Usually I talk to you and your staff about postal issues. Tonight I'm going to try to stay on point, and I'm going to talk about a couple of things that you brought up. One is gun laws, basically. I don't own any guns. However, I have several friends who do, and I asked them, what kind of legislation do you think they should put in place to stop things like Sandy Hook happening. And one thing that came up is one gentleman said you should require gun safes. And I thought that was a really good suggestion, and I think that's something that you guys should be looking at. Another person suggested that if somebody purchases a weapon, they should be qualified to use that weapon, so that you don't have the problem of people purchasing weapons for someone else. And like I said, I'll be brief, and I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Something we never talk about that we should talk about a lot more, by the way, is the technology, trigger locks. So, it's going to be a matter of years. I keep waving this iPhone around. Our technology is so amazing. Somebody needs to work out some technology that will allow a weapon only to be fired by its owner. I can't believe that that's too hard to come up with. So I guess they have. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that we don't talk about when we talk about gun control that I think could really move the needle, like technology, like better, And by the way, I hear the Connecticut state legislation is going to have some standards for how you keep guns in your home. So we'll have to see tomorrow when we see that legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.